and we'll be closing the show with our final segment, looking at overcoming poverty. To discuss with me, I have public analyst Ayodeji Aluko. Ayodeji, welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Thanks, Isabella. It's a pleasure.
So let's go straight into it. Overcoming poverty. Now, we have statistics here. Foreign direct investment has fallen by more than half since 2010. You know, we've been called the world poverty capital, the poverty capital of the world. Do you agree with these statistics?
I think it was Benjamin Disraeli, or often attributed to him though. He said, we have lies, we have damned lies, and we have statistics. So I often don't like quoting statistics that I'm not privy to, but one thing I know is there's poverty. It's clear and it's glaring. Everybody knows there's poverty. Okay? For instance, the vice president himself at some forum recently agreed to the fact that there was poverty, though he disputed these figures. So that's why I say I don't want to go into the argument of figures, but the fact is everybody is clear as to the fact that there's poverty. That is given.
So an increase in poverty, and yes, you have an exponential population growth. We have predictions that, you know, Nigeria is going to have more young people come 20, 30 years. Like the two of them, how can we harness the potential of the youth in overcoming the poverty cycle in Nigeria? Okay,
so like you already alluded to, the population growth is an advantage. It is not a curse. So that is what the foreign investors need. They need the young population to work. They need the young population to drive the consumption they need. Local investors, the same thing. So it is a positive, it is not a negative. What government needs to do is to promote more encouraging policies for investors, at the same time, more policies that drive consumption from the local public. That is basically what we need to do. We need to promote more investments, more production, and we'll get things rolling.
So you agree that young people have what it takes to be a solution to the poverty problem. But when we talk about poverty in Nigeria, we always go back to oil, the curse of oil, and we talk about diversification of the economy. Do you feel that this administration in the past 4 years have really taken on board that diversification agenda?
Okay, they've attempted to. We've seen some increases in internally generated revenues. We've seen some increases in the GDP from agriculture, manufacturing, and other sectors, but there's still room for a lot of improvements, and that's what they should be looking into. So, for example, you have agriculture. It's not enough to produce these agricultural goods. You can look into setting up factories or industries that add value to them. Those are things you can encourage to come in. If you give them tax rebates or some form of encouragement, they'll do that. We saw online the other day a village where baskets of tomatoes were being sold for nothing. And they could have made a lot of money from all that. But because once it was kept, it was going to get spoiled. So they had to just sell it off at nothing. So that is capital that is wasting. That's some investments for some people that is wasting. That's what's going to make some people richer. That's going to take some people out of this poverty cycle we're talking about. So government needs to look at adding value to some of this diversification efforts. It's not enough to encourage agriculture or encourage mining like they're doing. They must look at adding value to it to sustain it and make it deeper. That's
and talking
what we need
about
to look at.
adding value, how can they add value to the human capital, that youth resource that you said is an advantage?
Okay, so people have complained about our educational system. To some extent, I don't agree with a lot of the things people say, but then I think our educational system needs to be more deliberate. We need to factor in the needs of the society when grooming people. We need to start having professional education. We need to start having education that can impact the needs of the moment, basically. So to that extent, we can improve our education. We also need to encourage young people to do things that are hands-on. A lot of people don't get into university and they're useless until the day they get into university. You can go to a technical school and start doing something, and there are people who are technicians in the oil industries and make a lot of money.
So less dependence on just university education, but vocational schools, technical schools, preparing young people for the world of work, which keeps evolving.
Exactly.
Now, let's look at some of the programs that the past administration were very popular with. You know, you had the trader money, you had the Empower, and these things looked at solving the unemployment problem as well as bringing them out of poverty. So these are things that this present administration is still doing.
Yeah.
So what do you make? Do you think these are enough? Because they say they're going to encourage small-scale businesses, and SMEs can be the lifeblood of society.
Okay, so the efforts so far, the N-Power, the trader money, they are immediate efforts. They don't sustain the economy on a long term. So we're in a recession. So to get out of the recession and stabilize the economy, the government needed to stimulate consumption. So that is what has led to the conditional cash transfers, the trader money, the N-Power activities, and so on. But then we need to do more. We now need to look at encouraging people to bring in more money to set up industries. We need to look at local investors doing things that employ people. So, for instance, foreign investors don't come into a country where the local investors are not confident about. So we need to also start looking at local investors putting their monies in Nigeria and investing in Nigeria. So that is a major way to make sure that things beyond the N-Power, beyond the trader money, beyond the conditional cash transfers that are ongoing at the moment, those will solve the crisis in the immediate. Those will stimulate the economy in the immediate.
You could say they treat the symptoms, but the root cause, the foundation cause, so more of the macroeconomic. So what are some things they can do to make it business-friendly for even local investors to set up companies and be guaranteed their returns? Okay, so some of the encouragements that the foreign investors get, they don't apply to local investors. For instance, as a local investor, I should be able to import some things without tariffs. Yeah, I should get reduced tariffs. Yeah, but probably because of the might and the clout that the foreign investors come with, they go directly to government and negotiate these things and get them. So we need to give local investors that advantage as well. We also need to look at making local investors believe in Nigeria. So this is more of a communication and public orientation issue. I was discussing with someone recently. The whole of Nigeria has gone to Canada. And when they're going to Canada, they go with a lot of money. They go with millions. Imagine those millions were in this country developing this economy. It would probably be better. But we keep removing from the investments in the economy, take it to Canada. Canada keeps getting better, and we're getting worse. So brain drain is a problem. What can be done to stem brain drain? Brain drain. Okay, so one of the things I often propose is the fact that people want to be able to be paid what their counterparts earn outside Nigeria. So, for example, in the US, farmers get subventions from government to encourage them to farm. So if we see a particular sector that is being drained, we can encourage them to stay. We could give them some form of trust fund to augment or some form of advantage that keeps them away from leaving. Yeah, just like the farmers get, so like the subsidies and all that. I know a lot of people are against subsidies because they think it is another way governments steal money. But then the different countries in the world, the countries we tend to copy, the United States, the UK, there are ways governments support this sector. In the UK, the government supports the health sector a great deal. And that's where the doctors are paid from. So the doctors don't need to live the way our doctors live. So fair compensation that is comparable to worldwide standards. Yes. Thank you very much, Ayodeji Aluko, for your contributions on the show today. Thank you so much, Isabella. It's a pleasure. Thanks. And that's where we'll be wrapping up this episode of Rubbin Minds. My name is Isabella Akinshare. You can follow the conversation online using the hashtag Rubbin Minds by tweeting at YNigerTV on Twitter and YNiger Television on Instagram. Goodbye.